Ronna McDaniel wins re-election to another 2-year term as RNC chair. Today on Political Access, we're going to briefly cover this story and talk about what it might mean. So first of all, here's the results on the Wikipedia page. And of the 168 votes, Ronna McDaniel got 111. Good enough for 66.8% of the vote. Her closest challenger, Harmeet Dillon, she got 30.7. Mike Lindell got 4 votes with 2.4% of the vote. And even Lee Zeldin, who wasn't even running for this position, he also got 1 vote. So what's the background about this race and how significant is it? Well, McDaniel, she's been the RNC chair since 2017. So she's going to serve another 2-year term. And due to the party's relatively weak success in the recent midterms, there were some calls for McDaniel to step aside, get somebody else in there. And that's where Harmeet Dillon comes in. And if you're wondering, Donald Trump, he pretty much remained neutral on his endorsement in this race. But a lot of the Trump base, they are tired of Ronna McDaniel. She's been in there a while, and there hasn't really been a lot of success under her leadership. So it does seem perfectly reasonable to me to want to see somebody else take charge after 6 years and disappointing results. And I think that's pretty undeniable. The last 6 years after 2016, they've been pretty much a failure for the Republican Party. They've had a few moments of success, and they did win the House in 2022. But other than a couple of small victories, I don't think McDaniel can claim she has a lot on her resume. So we'll see what happens. We're going to see how all the fundraising goes, which candidates are going to get propped up, which ones are going to be shoved into the background, and what kind of party platform the Republicans adopt heading into 2024. So I'm going to switch over here and scroll through this article and give you some general thoughts about this race, as well as party leadership roles in general. So the reaction to McDaniel winning re-election all depends on how you want to look at it. She's certainly more establishment-friendly, and her challenger, Harmeet Dillon, as well as Mike Lindell, they're regarded as more risky or even more to the right of McDaniel. So I've seen both sides say, you can't go with one of them. They're too far out there. You got to stick with somebody that has some mainstream appeal. And then I've seen the other side say, no, McDaniel had her chance. She did not deliver the goods. It's time for her to step aside, get somebody else in there that really wants to win and change the direction of the Republican Party, because they do not want to head into 2024 ready to take another loss. I do think both sides make somewhat coherent arguments, but for me the bigger takeaway, which I frequently mention on this channel, is the establishment maintaining its grip on political power. Now, the Democratic National Committee Chair, Jamie Harrison, and before him, Tom Perez, to me they both seem pretty establishment, and there wasn't much movement from the outside trying to take over the party from within. And the Democrats are much better at that, as we just saw in the recent Speaker of the House election. They were all united for Hakeem Jeffries. And again, that depends on how you want to look at it. Some people are going to say, that's great. A solid voice of unity is what you need to win. And that might be true. That might deliver you better results in general. But then at the very same time, that might just as well be bolstering the establishment as well as the corporate interests. And a lot of the American people in both parties, they're going to be left behind at the expense of the elites. So having solidarity, if you're the Democrats, I really think that only goes so far. It's good to have different voices, different people with different visions try to rise up and change the direction of the party. I think it would have been nice to have a real outsider gain some traction for the DNC election. But the big problem, as I frequently mention, is once you're an outsider going against the establishment, then the media is not going to be on your side. As much as people like an underdog story, the power and influence of political establishments is basically limitless. Those, combined with the mainstream media, can shape any narrative they want. And if they see you as a threat to them, they will come after you, and they will smear you, and they'll dig up anything they can just to make sure nobody wants to associate with you, and you can't win an election. And that, to me, I think is the biggest takeaway. And it doesn't mean every outsider and everyone that's anti-establishment is automatically a great candidate or a great person. But I do think once the establishment has so much of a monopoly on how to think, that does create a real bubble and an echo chamber, and they don't want to entertain any outside ideas. And more often than not, I think that's a real problem, maybe even a real danger. So I'm generally for outsider candidates shaking things up. You don't have to like all of their views or all of their policies, but a lot of people think there's a political duopoly that's there to serve the corporate interest. So seeing the Republicans at least try to shake it up in the Speaker of the House election and in this RNC election, I think that's a positive sign. You can even argue they did have success in 2016 where Donald Trump was the ultimate outsider candidate, and they did everything they could to take him down, but eventually, somehow he was able to get through and win that election. So yet again, it all depends on how you want to look at it. If things are going well for you and you're in favor of the establishment, you're not really going to want to rock the boat. And you're not going to want to hear from an outsider, and you're not going to want to hear that we need to do some things differently. But there are a lot of times that certain things do have to change. And I know the establishment really freaks out if they think a new voice might persuade other people to try different options. And again, this is true on both sides. So even though the Democrats have had more success over the last several election cycles, I hear a lot of progressives are completely disappointed how the Democrats failed to deliver on many of their political priorities. A lot of the progressives that came in 2018, so many of them ended up falling in line with the establishment more often than not, leaving many Americans yet again wondering what does it take to see real change in Washington. I've got plenty of my own criticisms as well, but I do think at least the Republicans are having internal battles on which way to take the party. Maybe they're taking a few more losses than they'd like in the process, but you can easily make a case that having a reckoning within the party is a good thing. But anyway, that's a little bit about this RNC election and what I think about it. Let me know in the comments, what do you think about this election? And what do you think about political establishments on both sides? And how do you think the Republicans are going to do with another 2 years of Ronna McDaniel? Let me know down below. And on your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I will see you on the next video.